do Owusu Sarkodie University of Ghana Economics Department and in Commodore akwabe kosi sensoni
ya ni ameshabu for nyina
na oho ye de
emradom ho ye pa
fantastic nyame adom ye so ye ho ye pa me gidi say oje mre etime budget presentation ni ebi then a woman jump at you from 49 pages a minister e kan ma ye no
okay I'm minister no kasa bebre I mean ochire Ghana for be na economy ni wo sana omo ba ben mu ene nyoma na de da kwema sana covid ni war nso ebe se nyoma ene nso akiri no nyoma bi agu kwem so won pese nyoma oman fika sem no ahode na sorry minimum there before the budget na nkasa na me ni any exceptional expectations because we know the IMF program and the IMF program so the one of so the draw budget no and the IMF program no was here for fiscal consolidation and say buy no one nimbo na ho de so bebre so revenue say now expenditure so say and no na have budget nim so omo ye I feel was budget deficit no obenya no bear 3% which is okay, which is less than even the Fiscal Responsibility Act, a benchmark of 5% of GDP. And abandoning Nana say abandon obeke ni sikan open or memno obepejem na the audience so no expenditure so no or be measured or better so na say on money nkwani mu pre so the be I am a program no enko share no but at the same time so no budget when so because next year election year no abandon so obey nyoma bebre be dey say akwan ene nyoma bi omudi gu akwan mu a be ma oman no aman home so na be am say o question be a metim di answer na fire agric say agric dem so obo ho pa say agric the last thing you want in the country say aduane ni o man agric aduane ni nsuo say be ya benya bia di food security na ye kan no ene say ye aduane abana enuabana mpro ye betimi asie storage ye betimi asie na dachi ye yusu ene say farmers also benya input fertilizer and pesticides and then your mom akandia akuafo ni yomo adwuma no ombenya at a relatively cheaper price so the beya yes see ekoto adwomu a ebo no ba from ti agric ho de obo ho ye pa and then okan yin kan the factory manufacturing sector nso kan and okan tourism it just say we nim ye nyoma emabru no dodo na omoni gye ho tourism ni sports also na ban na energy say obebo ho ye because also na ye pay adwuma be free am say tax no there minimum there me new tax be am say existing ones na and revising kakra because in Nana we were not expecting new taxes because it will be politically suicidal in election year so be new tax handles back and can never
say existing ones no existing ones na say review of the existing ones the incident of those reviews will still be on the taxpayer na meboa
it depends on the elasticity of demand of the product economics be I can no be a producer no ever incidents ni bi so consumers ever incidents ni bi and it's a calculation no sa negotiations so na say cost ema yina ya ho hare see the budget there. I'm say it missed all my expectations. I'm can say I wasn't even expecting something new. Bia yanka da ebe yi ne ho to say the yi ne ho no. I wasn't expecting anything when I the class or say agric any manufacturing no. Obasha hoye agric in them so bo hoye pa and we are going to see a massive investment in agric. I'm say budget no. Agric be fa ne chefa no bekọ animu nti energy stock and one them minia ade ya pa ne say combedo no asa adasum say ne Ghana for empese ye be hu bibio nti aban no say be yan adwane de food security and energy security no very important to the government wa kan you budget nti it's okay you hear them so be can I'm so also my introduction before so be frame no road construction
sure
Nina Kahombi, because of course, what do you expect? Next year's an election year. And I did about Ghana for Tahi Father to buy a road. What because I make one year and the 2 about into Abano, essay or Becca a choir or the Guna or the go or Benny now, Bay, and then tell or Telebaya Ghana for in a home Harry. In a nutshell, this budget seems to be okay for me.
The other thing, and I think I just left the phone with Honorable John Janapo. Na Onono make key points. The overall real GDP growth of at least 2.8% in 2024, no, a too low, and even non-oil, a 2.1%, and period inflation rate, a 15%. He thinks these projections, even though projections, no, they are still too low for him, and he also makes the point, say, GDP growth, a 2.8%. In percentage terms, but in nominal terms, no, Utimu say economy no ebe grow in nominal terms, even way and above how much it is growing in percentage terms. And he thinks that a gap no would mean that then there would be more taxes on the people because also buying raising sa gap na growth no by in terms of revenue receipts no I was buying edgy from Manfon, and that's why he is worried. Say I'm sure taxes are eba bitriano or Manfon ni komo bebu.
It's a good projection, real GDP growth. The way that we are emphasizing on real GDP growth and not nominal GDP growth, because nominal GDP growth no inflation bit mamana kwa ni mu nti obafi se bia enyuma na yeye no me kwa ni mu na inflation na drive na price na drive. But the real GDP growth rate is the actual production and the inflation income.
Yes.
And the projection of 2.8, and I think it was measured. And the minister provided a context. Context, and then they say, one, global economy is going to slow down. In fact, the projection has a projection of 3.1, will be lower than the 3.6 in the previous year. And the West African region, also, economy will slow down. And your IMF program, no. So IMF program, that's our fiscal consolidation, and it's a bino any measured in its expenditure. You wouldn't see much growth. In fact, there be a strong fiscal consolidation. Now, it's domestic debt exchange program and any debt restructuring. Piano. Who say GDP in the cost because baby a union be fear bano. Sabio, say Hosikano, how Hosikano form, for example, banks here or Masafai, who say banks no. And honestly, for me, the 2.8% projection in there is within the context and is accepted, and it's the right projection. Sometimes it's even better to do a lower projection, not above, than better. 2023 or more, revised in the downwards for 1.5.
Yes.
Now, 2 or 2%, which is okay. So revise all the cost and the amount for choice any abasa. But we are measured in your projection. I say if you are able to go beyond it, praise the Lord. Then the angle maybe another person will take it about taxation is in economics, the projection from the public finance books has always been said tax revenue should be about the growth of the tax revenue should be about 2.5% times the real GDP growth rate. And because you tax every GDP,
yes,
the GDP no could anymore and you tax revenue. But the linkage in some economies is very strong. But in Ghana, the linkage between the real GDP growth and the tax revenue growth rate is very loose. I didn't hear because nipa bebre or what or motor car or sit down or you can see real economic activities going on, and so we want to and we must strengthen the link between GDP growth rate and tax revenue mobilization. If you're able to strengthen it through digitization, there be a vice president which is a good thing. And if we can leverage digitization to mobilize revenue mobilization and no one are buying so tax revenue GDP there we pian we na we pian we benkum gya ni fa gya bonkum the GDP no kɔ anim a tax revenue be kɔ anim the tax revenue nso kɔ anim a the following year GDP nso be kɔ anim because revenue na buy no cost spending and let's strengthen the link between tax revenue and then GDP growth rate. But in the tax revenue, no, let's be measured, sir. And you say, oh, to two more, and answer what they are talking for, but and assure revenue mobilization. No, there are so many ways about increasing revenue without necessarily introducing new tax or increasing the tax rates. And Obi. So yeah, financial minister, economists now propose you a sector of the economy here in tax here. Baby, that's where you tax, and the baby or more form. Then you give them some incentives. Ghana, however, be a attractive sector, natural resource. Natural resource in the midst of all the challenges are here facing. IMF documents that projected natural resource to grow by 12% this year. And it's open tax here now per levies we are an attractive sector. And honestly, one of my disappointments is that because finance minister share a movie and I share good and invite and share war academia. And I made a proposal. I said, increasing royalties now mining companies in each and it has not been increased. The mining sector is so lucrative. It's so lucrative.
Low hanging fruit, a bit many carefree easily.
Yeah. Averagely, according to the budget, we get about 4.3 billion cedis. If you double the rate, because the royalties are around 5%, if you double it to 10%, you are doubling on everything being equal. You are doubling the revenue from 4.3 to say 8.6, which is okay. Then property rates now you can and also some say after with budget no akasa more money no money property rate now telcos so no make profit. You can tax their revenue. You can tax as a main can COVID-19 levy na some now I'm not for I say you free but I'm say finance minister no muscle which means say we maintaining
yes
but COVID-19 some people think say is because virus no na yet tax the virus no call their main tax you free but I buy penny for say almost say busia na buy no ko boy and they to can I say nose mask and then your expenditure no health workers so more 50% increment in their allowances etc no that can I buy no boy no or you levy the chiaka and because see so much chiaka everyone the levy no be ho ntenye virus na some cry. Okay, number one. Number two,
no but and also because the impression was created say we have a benevolent government. Yeah, we're buying or draining a man for in a period of crisis. See, a buying back to the support of Neman for. We didn't get that impression. Say we the Bosian the you the Mobesia Baby Triana back through taxes.
Well, maybe political wise, the communication didn't go well. But as an economist, I understand. Whenever you are facing challenges in your economy, you provide relief to your citizens. When things become better, then you collect your revenue. So that's how the economic system should work, and that's how it must work all the time. Not providing some relief.
Yes.
So I just say, oh, you are now Bobusia for sure. So we are over to
sure.
Political communication. Of course, the government will not tell you, say, it's so now more free and I say, and then I'm going to move later. I'll bet you, but within the economic system, it's right for them to do that. And now, the Manu said, COVID-19 levy, savings are buying it, Busia no boy no crack via. Let them keep it because now the government cannot have any avenue to introduce any new tax. And the existing ones, they hygiene they should keep it. Now COVID-19, so what you have Canada already directing levy and health sector. NHIS now say you can't dialysis system. Yeah, the calculation the CEO of Kolebu and I'm analysis. The cost of dialysis in a year is about 58 million. Yes, 58 million Ghana cedis. And so if you have a COVID-19 levy that is giving government 2 billion cedis a year, it can be used for so many things. So make me give you a share NHIS amasa and some can get how can get na NHI for no face no. Over to me so master. But you mean should be a number oh my minty. Let's keep it without introducing additional tax or increasing the rate.
Yeah. Now me will bear two more questions the amount.
Sure.
Number one here on expenditure, because the point has been made, say you can either increase revenue to rake in more revenue or reduce your expenditure to still rake in some more revenue. So Ocean resource mobilization. That be resource allocation for 2024. That's where I want to. Paragraph 65. I say total expenditure commitment is projected at 226.7 billion Ghana cedis. That's 21.6% of GDP. This projection reflects a reduction of 6.1 percentage points of GDP in total expenditures, i.e. commitment basis, relative to the outturn in 2022. This large decrease comes from the combination of fiscal consolidation efforts of 4.9 percentage points of GDP, reflecting an adjustment in revenue by 1.0 percentage point and primary expenditure by 4.0 percentage point of GDP. My point, NSA, of course, you name the breakdown of Neoma Abai area specifically to bring one expenditure down, maybe about the main or the detailed presentation with appendix from whatever called parliament name. But is this bold for you, say, Abai air checking the expenditure to be able to raise more revenue?
Oh yeah, maybe Abana Basu said. I'm saying Ghana for Kasai or Moti, the Biana Ghana for so you should be measured in your expenditure. Munsho Ghana for Munti V and so Munti Convoy and so Namunfa Bass. I'm saying Vice President or corner pro bono. I say no, you should bass. Munatana Bass Munti. And these are all signals here, good signals almost send it to Ghanaians. So Ghana for Kasai no Moti, no matter so. This year, say by the mid-year budget, no Moti expenditure also by a whooping 20 billion Ghana cedis. And the expenditure no growth for no. Is more curtailed or contained. Now, besides say hina to so on free buy. Osha expenditure items now.
Okay, I think from paragraph 80, spending arrears clearance and prevention strategy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, compensation of employees now. How the own team so because I buy a juma for the can't be any packetian to move and say inflation is 35%.
Yes.
And I say Krana. Chapata committee, my 23 and
base rate of 23%.
Yes, yeah. And I heard the honor some cano, and the idea of meeting me, I honk a crabby, I say, dear, I buy you my for our formula or better so, and also the alcohol fast as anybody up. And then,
another issue. You are creating more unemployment than.
There's also a transfer to government units, statutory payments. This is a family common fund, NHIL, GET fund, and no road fund for them. The Abana and say we're capping. They say be say a transfer. So what also idea? So we say what to ensure. When we say VAT now, so we who NHIL, we who VAT. And to say be out to ensure this is that's a one city else called GET fund. I would say one city now also called GET fund. Often now called GET fund. What is so the biaba a buying said a bear a balance a bit to me a machinery no a bit to me running. Now dear expenditure.
But that would also mean sir you are depriving GET fund of much needed resources for Jume or somewhere.
Yeah, and now Minister can say burden sharing no Obia air buaka country, GET fund air buaka, road fund air buaka, NHL and so buaka. Now buying so the Muaba. The Tosum you know government goods and services. Car, computers, paper, any Christmas. Last Christmas, we did it dry. No hampers, ministries. This year, the vampire said, "Be able to you that among for your Christmas hampers, kaka." And to goods and services, no, or much so, hotel conferences, Nina, no, or much so. And to honor cat and on super, but cat can see a pa, a bano, this major savings, interest payment. Because of the DDEP, and then now they are going to the external debt exchange.
Yes.
And the interest payment, by the time our haircut, and they say, a beer medoka 100 cities. in Sihuno or Semitia 20 cities Afibia, but because of the debt exchange in Sihuno Babia 20 and Metia 18. And the South two cities, a better savings or by the cut in the expenditure. Anka was a minimum amount from our high savings in government. And interest payments and hopper both domestic and external. And the boy buying a cassette power which in the year this cut in expenditure. And so going forward, we just hope that we can have future loans on concessional basis. So that the debt service burden and make a share or buying so.
The other thing, apart from expenditure cuts.
Before we come to your next question, let me make this point. This and can by size of government. Speaking. So, for example, obviously, Ministry of Fisheries and the Ministry of Agri can be combined and make one. If you combine these two ministries, it's only the Minister of, maybe you want to let go the Minister of Fisheries and then the Deputy. All other workers will still stay. The savings may not be that significant, but what maybe Ghanaians are looking for is just a signal. Yeah,
the signal,
to them to show that there's a burden share. But honestly speaking, if you look at the figures, the savings will not be that significant. But the signal not there. It will be significant.
It will be significant.
What's the amount for say? Oh, Monshe, some more kind of cry at a number of ministers. So that message would have been more significant. But in terms of money, there, because it's only the minister who will go, the secretaries will stay, the drivers will stay, every other worker will stay. And the size of government today is more of a social political issue than a real
economic issue. Very well. My final way by the tax reliefs are what budget? I think there are 7 of them. Tax reliefs, and I want to find out say the proper reliefs I was say are buying at the Emma, because Honorable John Jinapo argument and they say yes, tax relief there about the impact because I also extend 0 rate of VAT on locally manufactured African prints for 2 more years. He makes the point, say, how many people will this affect? Waive import duties on import of electric vehicles for public transportation for a period of 8 years. Again, the point was made, say, Nipa say under the electric vehicles, Bagana, so really, why am I we be affect? Waive import duties on semi-knockdown and completely knocked down electric vehicles. Again, the same thing. Extend 0 rate of VAT on locally assembled vehicles for 2 more years. 0 rate of VAT on locally produced sanitary parts. Grant import duty waivers for raw materials for the production of sanitary parts locally. Grant exemptions on the importation of agric machinery, raw materials for pharmaceutical industry, and a VAT flat rate of 5% to replace the 15% standard VAT rate on all commercial properties will be introduced to simplify administration. Really, over tax reliefs, is this what we need? Looking at the current state, are you here?
Okay, I think let me provide a context for my answer. We are now in an economy what IMF in SEM. And IMF program, the number one thing they are looking for is a fiscal consolidation. And it's a bridge the gap between revenue and expenditure. So you can either raise the revenue and or reduce expenditure. And most of the expenditures are even regulating themselves. Until the onus is on revenue mobilization. So, government and as economy area fiscal consolidation. That's not the economy by preaching tax reduction or tax cancellation or tax relief. It will be out of place. But I understand where the government is coming from, because let me give you another context. Government is now doing the tight fiscal policy, which I've mentioned. It's also doing a tight monetary policy. Or to say Bank of Ghana and saying, or more increasing policy rate. And as we speak, there is 0% financing from the central bank. It is a Bank of Ghana on field. But in any case, I object this 0% financing. I think that the Ghanaian economy is too young to ensure 0% financing. But that will be a conversation for another day. From last year to this year, abandoning to Eurobond market, Resi bonds. The only option left is for them to borrow domestically at higher cost. And you can abandoning near and to be said revenue no domestic revenue no kwana bebuano. Enti the amount for raise issue say tax in the door so munyesia abane say okay what you say also the obetimi ya aboanie. I don't know if you understand the question. So it's not really about say obey tax in free more munyina mo to more 100%, but burden sharing no issue na e cost no say what can was what obey bibi afa ho say the be ya momo ho beto mo aban so lose revenue because at the time aban here revenue kese pa no. This is not a time to ask the government to reduce or abolish any tax revenue. We made a similar mistake in 2017. Some of them abolish 2017 taxes without any contingency plan. Without a contingency plan. And in America, there's a contingency plan view of what they say be a strategic sector there. Then abolish them and go to the strategic sector. But abandon so and yet contingency plan. And tax reduction. And should I no objective? And to me, my understanding is that this is how far they can go. This is the best they can do to help the private sector because the priority for government now is to increase local production to create jobs. And to or touching on areas there, local production across and without necessarily losing so much in terms of revenue. So a person more or less a win-win position. Mama was some relief. At the same time, also lose revenue the brain.
Very well. Doc, my yenshana yemfa insi. Me did say afe na ya starti peruse budget. Ninti as and when something comes up, ne be san so afre no wedding komobio. Right. Yeah, that's it. Nyami shao. Inti Dr. Edu Owusu Sarkodie, lecturer, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Economics Department. And amotezi no